Hello, this is Hope Roski, and I'm sitting in for Mike Briggs today with Briggs on Books. Today, I would like to introduce to you author Terry Repak. Terry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hope.
It is a pleasure to have you. Terry, I have to tell you, your book and what you have to write about, to me, is so inspirational. You spent 10 years in Africa, and that's a pretty long time to take a family overseas. But the experiences that you had to be absolutely one of the most enriching experiences a family could have. And maybe you can share with the viewers some of the experiences that you had that you talk about in your book.
I talk about a number of different issues, the most important being what it's like to raise children overseas, because it's a very marking experience. So much so, my children went to international schools, excellent schools in both Ivory Coast and Tanzania, and were such attuned global citizens at the end of that time that they really are, they're big travelers, but they're also very perceptive when they travel about what people are, how people are living and what conditions are like for people. And, the danger of a global lifestyle like ours is that your children may go far away from you. And so I have a daughter now who's living in London. She's married and has two children, so we have to go a very long distance to see our grandchildren.
But at the same time, the experiences that they gain help make them the adults that they are today. And I think you were down there in a time in the earlier 90s, starting in 1993, when the AIDS pandemic was really at its height. And Africa itself as a country really struggled. Maybe you could share with the viewers, some of the things that you experienced with that.
Right. The in the 90s, it was kind of the height of the epidemic pandemic across the continent. And we were in Ivory Coast in West Africa, which was there were a lot of people dying of AIDS, but it was a little better than it was in Southern Africa and in East Africa. We had several people attached to us who were working with us at the time. There was all Americans attached to the American embassy had to have a guard at their gate, mostly for preventive purposes, so that people wouldn't, try to come in, also to screen visitors. So we had a guard at the gate, and we got to know him very well because the kids saw him every day. I talked to him every day. And the man that we got to know well in our first year there, who really helped us to adjust and learn what was going on in the neighborhood and the city, he developed AIDS a year after we got there.
Oh,
And so it was a very sad process watching, it's very swift. Within a matter of months, he grew emaciated and got very ill and then passed away. And unfortunately, it spreads like wildfire. So his wife also passed away shortly afterwards, and their infant daughter.
oh,
Uh, this happened several times in the 90s with people we knew because there were no medications at the time that
right.
would really help. But when we went back to Africa in the 2000s, to East Africa, this time we were in Tanzania, it was really just a miraculous change. People were not dying if they got on these antiretroviral medications. And that was my husband's job with the CDC, was to help as many people as possible get on the ARVs. And it was funded by taxpayers like you and me. So the US government paid millions of dollars to give these medicines all across the continent. And they say that, I mean, the numbers are 25 million people were saved from early deaths,
That's
thanks to these
incredible. That's
medicines.
significant. It's really paramount to fighting that AIDS pandemic, because without it, they would have continued to really suffer through that type of pandemic.
That's right. That's right. So
And
my book deals
yeah.
with AIDS and the changes, the arc of AIDS work in Africa, across Africa, in the early days and later days. I talk about raising children overseas, and it's also about finding home, how we find home, even if we're just moving across the country. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and now I live in Seattle, Washington. So um, all of us are at times challenged to find home in a different place.
And it's really, I always hear, home is where the heart is. And I think that once you land in a place, wherever that may be, you make it your own, you make it your home. One of the experiences that I think the viewers would love to hear about is Mount Kilimanjaro. Can you talk to the viewers about that?
Sure. In fact, I get requests like that all the time because people will contact me and say, "Oh, we're doing the climb next summer or whatever. Could you give me some clues?" Um, Usually, you go with a guide and or a number of guides because we were a group of 8 women who climbed it, and we were camping. So we hired guides who then hired porters to carry our tents and water, that type of thing. And it was an amazing experience. It really was an encounter with nature that I'd never had before, even though I'm a big hiker.
How,
And
how long did you have to prepare to take on a hike like that?
so I trained for a couple of months. My son, he was in high school at the time, and he climbed it with his school group because he's a big hiker. And so he was coaching me in the exercises to do and how to prepare. So I'd say for a couple of months, I was walking 3 to 5 miles a day and going to the gym and doing leg exercises in particular. But a good couple of months you need. The thing is, though, even you can prepare as much as you can and really be diligent, but if your lungs can't handle heights of 16 and 18,000 feet, there's not much you can do other than just pack it in and say, I gave it a good try.
Right. And how long did it take you to get to the point where you wanted to be at Mount Kilimanjaro?
Well, the I fell in love with Kilimanjaro when I saw it the first year we lived there, and I wanted to climb it at some point during our stay in Tanzania. The actual climb itself took 6 days. We averaged, I guess, about 8 miles a day, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're going up 3,000 feet a day, it can be challenging.
As a personal fitness trainer, I feel for what you're saying, because as you continue to climb and the air gets thinner, it becomes more and more challenging. So that's quite a feat that you accomplished. So congratulations to you. It
Thank
sounds
you.
like your book offers so much. I mean, everything from the beauty of Africa to some of the tragedies. Do you talk at all about safaris and things? That's what people are really, it seem to be into these days, is the wildlife.
Do. Yes, I do. We went on as many safaris as we could. We took the children on, they were high school age, on treks across the Ngorongoro Highlands. That's right next to the Serengeti. That was really beautiful. Um, and there were islands all along the coast of Tanzania. So we went to Zanzibar. My daughter got her diving certification in Zanzibar. And so we did some diving with the family. Um, the other thing, though, that was really important to us, besides the natural beauty and seeing as much as we could, was connecting with the local people, with other expats. Um, that's to me the crux of how you make a place home is to build bonds with people around you and have a network of people that are going to invite you and share their cultures with you. We had some amazing cultural experiences. Uh, for example, in Senegal, we were visiting Senegal during a spring break, the kids' spring break. And a taxi driver just happened to invite us home to his house during Tabaski, the Muslim festival of Tabaski, which is kind of like our Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids, they were small at the time. We went into his courtyard, a dirt courtyard, people sitting around on small stools. And he slaughtered the goat as they do. That's their tradition. And we were worried about the children seeing this and getting upset. But my husband, being the scientist and a doctor, started explaining to them as they were slaughtering the goat, well, this is the liver, and this is the kidneys, and this, and it became sort of a science lesson, an anatomy lesson for them. And we got to know this family um, well enough that the kids felt very comfortable to run around with their children. They went off and ran around the village, and we didn't see them the rest of the afternoon.
Wow.
So that was a great experience for all of us.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your experiences in Africa. And if viewers, if you want to read more, please pick up Terry Repak's book called Circling Home. This is Hope Roski with Briggs on Books.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.